Pokemon Go now has more downloads and installs on Android devices than Tinder, making it better than sex. I'm Sam.
And I'm Mike.
And we're going to give you 5 tips for how to get started playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
I wanna be the very
So we'll kick off by talking about the capture system. Like many of you, we went on YouTube and tried to figure out what the hell was going on and how to do any of this. So one of the first tricks that we found that wasn't really a trick was how you spin the ball to get curve points. Mike, what did you find today when you were playing?
Well, I found when I spin the ball and then try and throw it, I wouldn't get like any sort of bonus, right? I still trying to spin to get that spin bonus thing that they keep talking about, but the curve bonus is a separate like sort of throwing the ball around to get to the Pokemon.
So what you're talking about is when you literally put your hand on the Pokeball, hold, and
you
do a
spin
spinning
until
action and it glows,
the stars
right?
show up, yeah.
And from there, you can just shoot straight. You don't actually have to.
Like you had to have a spin and the glow will be there, but then you can stop and throw the Pokeball. You don't have to have it spin and then and then lob it from the spin. Right.
Likewise, you can get a curve action without doing that spinny action.
Right.
You can kind of shoot off to the side, lands to the side of the Pokemon. Basically, when it hits the side of the Pokemon, that's when you get that like curve point.
Right.
But they're really only 10 points, and so the next trick will tell you how to actually get more points than that.
Yes, agreed.
So the second trick we found out today was really how the circles work. It seemed like everyone on the internet was saying, all right, what you really need to do is wait for that circle to be smaller,
get it really
and that's
small.
going to help you capture the Pokemon.
Yeah.
In all of the Pokemon we caught today, which was probably about 400 between all of us.
Between 4 of us, yeah.
We found that to not be the case. So, Mike, how does the circle system work?
So, every Pokemon, when you run into them, they have a circle around them. Like, it's just a base gray circle. That circle is like your capture zone, so you need to throw a Pokeball into that space to try and catch the Pokemon. Then, as we all know, that there's another circle that's a specific color. It could be green, yellow, orange, or red. And that's based on the difficulty of catching the Pokemon. And that circle grows and shrinks inside of the bigger circle. What we think we discovered, how we feel it works, is the smaller that circle is, if you can hit that circle while it's small, that's how you get an excellent throw. And then if that circle's somewhere in the middle of being big and small, and you nail that circle, that's how you get a great throw. Mm-hmm. And then if you hit the big circle when the circle is kind of the size of the big circle, that can be a, what do they call it?
Nice.
A nice throw.
Right, so you'll basically see that when you push and hold a button, the circle will get smaller. And obviously, you can hit different parts of the Pokemon with the Pokeball to trigger the capture action.
Yes.
If you get it inside, usually it's difficult on things like Zubats because you're trying to lob and hit the Pokemon right on.
And they're so far away all the time and they're small, so it's tough.
So it's kind of a gauge of distance and accuracy, but if you get that right into the little zone, the smaller it is, the likelihood increases that you'll get an excellent.
Yes.
But if you throw it right away and it's a big circle, as long as it's in that circle, you'll probably get a nice.
Mm-hmm. I saw nice coming
really
very
easy to
lot.
get.
Yeah.
Nice is only worth 10 points.
Right.
But
which is easier to get those 10 points than trying to get like the curve 10 points. But then if you get the excellent, that's an extra 100 points, which is super valuable. And then you have
which is basically as much as catching the Pokemon if you've already.
If it's an old Pokemon. Right. And then if you have your Lucky Egg on, that's 200 points. That's how you really level up in that game.
So the third trick we learned was really about evolved Pokemon and trying to figure out what the best way to use all that candy was. And very specifically, evolved Pokemon don't get you more candy. Yeah,
I found that really disappointing. All the Pokemon you get and you find all these trash like low CP or just extra duplicate Pokemon, and you transfer them to Professor Willow, and he always gives you that one extra candy from when you caught it. And then we started finding some evolved Pokemon that we were able to catch, or like get a couple of Pidgeotos and stuff. And we would transfer those to Willow and hope that we might get 2 or 3 candies. Still get one.
Still one candy.
No matter what.
Right. What we did learn, though, however, is within each phase of evolution, the extra XP that you get is the same. It's 500. So if you're out there thinking, all right, well, I've got my lucky egg, I'm going to double some XP, evolve those Pidgeys. Don't evolve the Pidgeotos because it takes a lot
more,
less
yeah.
candy to evolve a Pidgey, and you'll get the same amount of experience boost.
Right.
Another thing that we saw a lot on the internet was about the paw prints. There were some people who said they were 1, 2, and 300 meters away. Some that said it was 50, 100, 150 meters away. We didn't go out and measure step by step what it was, but we do have a much better sense of how the paw print system works. So, Mike, you want to talk us through kind of the Bulbasaur catching that we were doing this afternoon in the park?
Sure. So, God, I don't even. It's complicated. The paw print system does work more or less how people describe, where it is telling you a distance that you are from a Pokemon, and how you can use that is you can just pick a direction and walk in it, and you can see if those paw prints change, if they become less or more, or if the Pokemon disappears based on where you're going. And then you can start using that to find out where the Pokemon is and triangulate their position. As you get closer, that paw print will finally go to 0. And once you're there, that means that you're near a spawn point for that Pokemon. So hopefully, if you're there, they should pop up at like soon, and then in the next minute or two.
Right, and so from a scale perspective, we found that going from 3 to 2 usually felt like a much larger distance than from 2 to 1.
Yeah, when you go from 2 to 0 is pretty fast.
Right, so when you're in that 2 range, you're probably pretty close. If you're finding yourself walking a long distance, you're probably headed into 3 territory.
Yeah.
The other thing we found really interesting, and this is where kind of we were able to capture multiple Bulbasaurs in the park that we were in, is there tend to be spawn points, right? Where a Bulbasaur tends to spawn in this spot, and it's just a set amount of time before it kind of respawns, much like MMOs do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely, as we went through the day and started kind of standing around the same areas and saw Pokemon actually respawn, I started to kind of feel like it was more like an MMO, where it's like, this is a Bulbasaur point, and once he's available for spawn, people will start seeing the paw prints available for him. And then once they come to that area, the Bulbasaur will spawn for everyone that's there, and for a set amount of time, he will show up. But after enough time passes, that spawn point gets spent, and then you have to wait so long before he becomes available again.
Right. It tends to hold pretty well if you have a large group of people there who are all kind of still trying to catch it. But once the people disperse, the spawn point seems to go away. So if you're with a group of friends, like we were this afternoon, keep them together. Because if you end up spawning, in which case the Cubone that we spawned, Mike wasn't able to get because it took him probably like 5 minutes to get over there because he was trying to look for it on the other side. And once again, it's because we went from 3 to 2 and then 2 to 1 really quickly. Yeah. Didn't have enough time.
We started with that 3 paw print. We're like, okay, we need to find this Cubone because we haven't seen one all day, essentially. And we're like, okay, we're all going to go different ways and try and look for it and communicate where it's at. They happened to find him first and spawned him and caught him before we could get there fast enough to be able to get it too.
Right. And so the last trick we have today really kind of has to do with the system in general and what we were noticing about essentially how often things were refreshing. And so we were all roughly around the same level. One of the guys with us had started today versus a couple days ago, so
he's
he
a
was
little bit lower.
Probably 2 levels under.
He caught up fast though.
Yeah, but what we noticed was everywhere we went, kind of as a group, all the Pokemon would spawn the same for all of us. Yeah. So when there was a Pidgey, within like a couple seconds, all of us saw a Pidgey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Generally, if you're sticking together in a group, you're probably like. Generally, our Pokemon lists for the day are probably pretty much the same. The numbers change, especially for Eric,
CP
who was
changes.
a lower. The CP is different. A lot of times, people like. 3 of us were roughly the same level. We would usually see the same CP on enemies, and sometimes there would be an outlier. Like 2 of us see a 150, and then you might get a 50, 60 or something. And then Eric was usually lower because he was lower level. But CP is based on your level. Like the Pokemon you find and their CP is based on your level, so that is a factor.
Right, and so this kind of goes into the trick that we found was if you're walking around together and Mike's like, "Oh, I found a Pidgey," and I'm like, "I don't have a Pidgey."
Yeah.
I would log you out, and you don't have to do a hard reset. You don't have to close the app. So if you're on iOS, just go to the home screen. Yeah. Wait maybe like 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a buffer.
Hop
you don't
back
just come down in.
And the game will kind of like refresh the connection, and usually you'll see the Pidgey or whatever right away. Yeah. And that tip actually works for a lot of different things. It works for paw prints, because sometimes the paw prints seem to get stuck. Yeah. And you've walked like a mile and you still have like a 3 footprint Eevee. Chances are the game didn't refresh during that time to hold it.
There were plenty of times when 2 of us would have on our nearby Pokemon screen, we'd have all these Pokemon, and then the other two people would have a completely different group of Pokemon, just because there's some sort of mismatch in connecting to the server and getting that information.
Right. And that's the other thing. Obviously, a lot of you have gone to Pokestops, tried to spin the Pokestop, it says try again, or it doesn't work, or it's locked down. Usually very simple. If it's blue, so you know that you can get it, hit the home button, get out of the app, go back in, it'll work. And it seems like so far, at least, this is probably like day 4 of Pokemon Go Live?
I think if you didn't start at like 9 o'clock on the night it came out, which is when it was available, it's like day 3, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So as of right now, the servers seem to be holding up fairly well. I mean,
much better than they were.
We played about 12 hours. Only 1 or 2 of us had server lockouts, and they weren't very long.
Yeah.
Probably a couple minutes, we'd log back in. So
the bigger issue is definitely just the game crashing.
Right.
That happens a lot. You catch a Pokemon, and then the Pokeball just sits there, and you have to just hard close the game and reload, and hopefully you still have that Pokemon.
But essentially, like, the home button is your friend.
Yeah, definitely.
Use the home button, get out, log back in. I think between all of us, we probably only lost 1, maybe 2 Pokemon to kind of capturing it and having it lock out, and then having to go to the home screen.
Yeah, more often than not, we still had it when it came back.
Yep. So that's it for our top 5 tips on how to get started with playing Pokemon Go. We know you have a lot of other questions, and we're going to answer them in some future videos, including this one. We're going to talk about the gym system, and then hopefully some pro tips on how to battle your opponent's Pokemon within those gyms. So signing off, I'm Sam.
I'm Mike.
And we're the Nerdy Knights. Catch you later.